So there's a discussion going on about hole saws, and I made some comments about my experiences, and I wanted to substantiate those a little bit with a quick video. So what I'd said is that I had purchased a kit, a set of various sizes of these Milwaukee hole dozer, just bimetal hole saws. And my experience was that I had noted several of them were sort of malformed. And I'll give you an example what I'm talking about. This is a good one here. Where the material is welded together on this seam, they stop the weld short of the tip. And that makes sense. They probably don't want to mess up the heat treating or whatever's going on up at the tip, right? But because probably it's stopped short, and because of maybe the heat or distortion or just however these are made, you have this scenario where there's a gap almost. The material sticks out further here than it does here. And it's pretty hard to see, and this is not a super high quality camera, but even when you look end on, you can see that this tooth sticks out a little bit further than the others. So, how bad actually is that issue? Well, let's take a look. I can measure in one dimension across this hole saw, 1099, 133, 132. So that's across the offending tooth, right? So in a 1 1/8 hole saw that's supposed to be 1.125, ideally, you're seeing looks like 132 or so. So, it's only slightly oversized. And, if you're just drilling a hole to run some wires through a 2x4, it's not a big deal. But I noticed that this happened on several of them. And for comparison, I have these Diablo, and, these are the carbides, so that you can see they've got the little brazed carbide tips on there. But I just noticed in looking at these how much better they look, how much rounder. And I looked at the weld, and the weld may come up a little bit closer to the edge, but they meet perfectly. The two pieces of material where they come together is really perfect. The other thing I noticed is that the weld seam on these Diablos always seems to come up right in the middle of two teeth. So it allows the tooth on both sides of the weld seam to be kind of normally formed. And I'll give you an example. That other 1 1/8 saw we just looked at from Milwaukee, you can see that the tooth came up right next to the other tooth. So instead of having the normal trough between teeth, you have these two teeth right next to each other. I'll give you a similar example from looks like unused 1 1/8 hole saw, or 1 1/2 hole saw. The seam came up right in the middle of a tooth. And so the tooth is only half a tooth. It was cut off right in the middle. The little trough comes up and you just have this little stubby thing sticking up. Well, to me, that's pretty soon it's going to get wore out. It's going to get knocked over, and you're going to be missing a tooth altogether. So on the exact same size Diablo saw that I have, you can see, the weld seam came up right between the peaks of two teeth. And obviously the material, where it was sheared or whatever, there is a little bit of an indication that there was another tooth that was going to start there. So that trough hasn't been ground out. I can't imagine they pay attention to that, but it just looks like the placement of the weld made more sense, so that it didn't bring it up right in the middle of a tooth. I don't know if that's on purpose. In a large number of these, I don't know if we would see that happening over and over again, or if this is just kind of occurring in my small sample size. But that's been my observation. These Diablo hole saws seem to be better made, and they have fewer of those little errors that result in, oversized holes, etc. Hope that helps.